Hello everyone, happy Poetry Month. So for this video, I'm here to talk about this book, The Book of Scents, which is 100 contemporary poems about perfume, which is edited by Jean Dubrow and Lindsay Lusby. I hope I said both of their names right. I'm just gonna read the back of the description and tell you what it says and read the little biographies about them, because I was like, oh, that's easier than Googling it, because it's right there. This book was released in, I want to say, when I looked, it said 2018, but I could be wrong. 2014, so I was wrong. So I'm going to read the description on the back of the book so you can get a feel of, what it's about. What if 100 contemporary American poets were sent individually selected vials of perfume, fragrances chosen to reflect the author's voices, aesthetics, or writerly obsessions? What if each poet wrote something new in response? The Book of Scented Things collects the results of this strange, aromantic experiment. Poems of longing and of childhood memory, poems of place and philosophy and politics, poems about the challenge of writing poems about perfume. This is an anthology whose words will linger on your pulse points long after even the bass notes have faded. So, got a little punny right there. I'm gonna tell y'all I'm wearing, this is Britney Spears' Fantasy. It's the body spray version. I feel like body sprays don't stay on me that long, but I'm wearing it because of the video. So I am wearing perfume in support of the book about perfume. And let me talk about their biographies. Now, I have reviewed a Jean Dubrow book in the past. It's like, not last year, I think the year before. I reviewed Red Army Red. I like her poetry. So here's her about. Jean Dubrow is the author of 4 poetry collections, including the most recently, not, they had a typo. Oh, including most recently. I typoed it. It's fine. Including most recently Red Army Red, which I just talked about, and Stateside. I do want to read that one. She is the director of the Rose O'Neal Literary House and an associate professor of creative writing at Washington College. She serves as series editor of the Literary House Press, it says on the bottom that it's a Literary House Press. I know it's going to be worse, but yeah. Lindsay Lusby. I hope I said her name right. Lindsay Lusby is the assistant director of the Rose O'Neal Literary House at Washington College. She serves as an assistant editor of the Literary House Press. So those are their biographies. I got this book on Amazon. I got it actually a couple years ago, so I do not remember how much it was. All of the books I'm going to talk about this Poetry Month, I bought either a while ago or were gifted. One of the books I was gifted is going to be, I'm going to spoil my schedule a little bit. Since this is a collection of poems, I'm going to read another collection of poems, and then I'm going to read 2 poetry books by individuals. So that's my plan. One of the collections of poems was given to me, even though it was on my Amazon list. But yeah, I don't think this was like that expensive though. But yeah, I will leave the link in the description. Actually, that would make more sense. I'm gonna leave the link in the description for this book. I'm just gonna give my overall opinion right now before I read some of the poems. Let me read something in the preface, the introduction of what criteria they gave the poets to write to. Okay. So I feel like they had like a really specific paragraph about what they did. Yeah, I think this part is just the origin. So basically, they said Jean Dubrow wrote the introduction, and then Lindsay Lusby wrote the preface. So she says, every poet who agreed to participate received an individually selected vial of perfume. We decanted fragrances into glass bottles no bigger than a thumbprint. And then she says where they would all be going to different places. Each scent we selected was meant to reflect the poet's particular aesthetic or voice or writerly obsessions, which they say in the description. There was no science. This was not a science, but intuition. We asked odd questions like, if Laura, I'm not gonna be able to say his last name, or a flower, what would she smell like? So they were talking about the different authors. What spice of Matthew Zapruder line break? So they were just asking about, what the different scents they thought the authors would probably like. Okay, along with the small bottle of scent, we gave each contributor these instructions. I think this is the page I was supposed to put my little sticky note on. Please write a poem that engages with or responds to the fragrance that we have sent you. We've said the poem could be an interpretation of the scent, a memory, a series of associations, or something entirely different kind of interaction with the fragrance. And then they basically told them to wear it and, kind of sit with it. I'm going to put the sticky note on this side. That was that important. I don't know what, maybe there was something interesting on here. Okay, they were talking about her and Lindsay thought both perfume and poetry were on the senses great persuasive illusions. Both required craft, a study of tradition, as well as a need for innovation. And both are frequently dismissed as old-fashioned or irrelevant to contemporary society, which is interesting because also in the preface, Lindsay talks about how there's some people who dislike perfume. She says, where is it? So she says basically it's the link between poetry and perfume. For it has to be said that the most obvious thing poetry and perfume have in common is that many people feel comfortable declaring that they hate them without knowing much about them. So I thought that was really interesting. Especially with like poetry talk, I meant perfume TikTok, perfume talk, really being popular, and like there's so many perfumes on the TikTok shop. Of course, this was made in 2014, so it's definitely different now. So yeah. But yeah, she basically says, and then she also says, perhaps it comes down to how you feel about unexpected invitations. Perfume and poetry don't take up much space, but they are made to expand in all directions and to take us along with them when they go. I feel like that was really interesting. I'm going to be honest, I did read the preface and the introduction after I read a lot of the poems because I was like trying to get into it, y'all, because I did not follow my own reading schedule once again. So we're going to read some, and I'm going to read 2 poems I wrote based off of 2 of the poems in the book. There's one interesting thing about this first poem, so I'm going to read that. They didn't give Amit, I'm going to assume Amit is a man. I did not read, hopefully, his biography in the back. But when I was looking, so in the back of the book, they have every fragrance that they gave to everyone. And like little biographies about all the poets. It's like a little index in the back. Contributors, I know you're not going to be able to read that. But it says contributors and matchmaking notes. So it tells you about the author, and then at the end in italics is the perfume they gave them. And this person, they did not give a scent. So I thought that was really interesting, writing a book about about perfume, and you don't give someone the perfume. It's interesting. So I'm going to read that poem. It's, and they titled it like, how Chanel number 5. So it's like number with a little 0. I think it's an O technically. Little O and then 1. And then each poem is at the top is like that. So it's Amit Majmudar. Hopefully I said his name right. It is his, because it says on his reluctance to contribute to the book of scented things. So he He was reluctant. All matter, all, all attires are unutterable. Dare I concoct a caption for I cannot speak today. Dare I concoct a caption for the air? I'll clothe the genie in the bottle. What use is Equphorus if the canvas isn't even there? A word is far too heavy for the strongest scent to bear. I've caught a whiff of unattainable, a whiff of well longing, where? In a long forgotten woman's long unforgotten hair. So I feel like it's still interesting, but I just feel like that's how you participating in a book about scent and they don't give you the scent. I feel like that's kind of should be, it should be like, mandatory. And I want to give my overall opinion. Before I read the preface and the introduction, I was like, what's going on? Because a lot of these are very abstract, and I thought it would be more literal. But knowing the instructions they gave them after I read the introduction, more so the introduction than the preface, where she talked about the criteria of what she gave them to work with, I understand how some of these are like really abstract, because they kind of just gave them, like a few rules, but just let them do what they wanted. But I want to read my favorites and read the poems that I wrote. There we go. Oh, and I want to say, let me turn around. If I can wait to sneeze. I want to say that I would give this book a 7 out of 10, since I thought it was going to be more literal. But I do understand the association with memories and things, which I feel like makes sense, because we have memories we can taste. All 5 senses, we have memories that we associate with them. For example, if you eat a certain thing, it might remind you of your 7th birthday party or something like that. So scent is the same way. But I would recommend it. I feel like it's really interesting. And then obviously I have a lot that I thought were cool and that I liked. More so like towards the towards the end of the book. But I'm gonna read my 2 favorite ones, and then I'm gonna read my 2 poems inspired by it. So I know one is on page 69 because I remember typing it when I wrote the poem. So this one is poem number 49 by Stacy Lynn Brown. That's not the name of it. The name is Ramble on Rose / Not Fade Away for Ruth Plaster. So this one is more of a memory association, which both are technically memories, versus like a literal interpretation of the perfume. Deadhead meant something different to my gardening aunt than it did to me. The oily scent of patchouli, greasing unwashed bodies, no substitute for soap. In camper parked lots, gaunt men in hemp belts cooked grilled cheese sandwiches on red-eyed burners, bartered shrooms for weed, called out for a miracle. It was a circus come to town every spring, and I was always thick in the middle of it, saucered. The pockets of my army pants riddled with seeds I'd later try to plant, but lacking her green thumb, would always come back empty-handed from the fields. She fed wild raccoons tame, grew coy, fertilized and mulched for the magnificent roses that unfolded like offerings. Open-fisted, Nautilus unfurled. She tamped down on a pack of cigarettes, flicked her plastic light, and set her garden while I communed with the unwashed and the holy. I never told time by show dates, never grieved a pig pen, only the spectacle of it all. The darkened arena, aloft in a haze of smoke. Malnourished girls in long skirts whirling like seedlings in the backlit portals between sections. Arms stretched out as if to catch the very air and rise. The muted harmonics of Jerry's guitar pinoing paint. Open mouth, wah wah, a trickling treckle, half stepping down. On hawked t-shirts, Calvin Hobbes swung it on Shakedown Street. Skulls blossomed fragrant into red, and always the stratospheric whirl of tie-dye, free fodder for the trip. Those nights I crashed at her house, too stoned to go home. She'd wait up for me to come down, the incessant thumping of drums circling. Excuse me. Of drum circles lingering in my head for days. We'd smoke. Years later, as she breathed beneath the oxygen mask that tethered her to this world like an astronaut on a walk from the capsule. Excuse me. I still wouldn't quit. It was something I carried with me like those mercurial melodies, the tracer notes that still come unbidden. Have a good show, deadheads would say to each other, is hello and goodbye. Hello, goodbye. Somewhere I still have a pack of her cigarettes, snaked from her bedside table after she died. Virginia Slims still shrink-wrapped, unbreathed. Somewhere, the ticket stubs and sweat-stained set list, the songs that bleed into one another like colors down a face. Each siege a sign point to make sure you journeyed back. Help/slip, Scarlet/fire. The music never stopped. I thought that was really sweet, like a nice dedication to her aunt. And let me see what scent she got. Her last name is Brown. Brown. Okay, let me see. Stacy Lynn Brown. She was paired with Rose Anomneem from Altier Cologne. So I have to look that one up. That's really interesting. So it's really interesting, like what kind of memories you get from smelling something. So I thought that was really sweet. So I'm going to read my poem about, since it was talking about music, I thought I would talk about my first concert that I ever went to. If my mouse would work. So the poem is called Freedom. I remember being carefree, except for when I needed something. Mom and Dad always there for me. Only had to worry about my grades. One homecoming, we decided to see Kesha in her trashy prime. I can't remember what I wore, but I remember being so excited for her. 303 was the opener, and they took so long, I left to go to the bathroom, and when I came back, they were still playing. Then she finally came on. I can't remember what I was wearing. I think I meant Perfume. But I was obsessed with Dark Kiss, a Bath & Body Works classic body spray, which I don't think they make anymore. It was sweet but musk. I always loved saying the name, Dark Kiss. It felt taboo, and so grown up to me. I was in college, my first time living away from home. I could be free and explore. There I was watching one of my favorite singers, my first concert ever. Dinosaur was my favorite song by her. I couldn't wait until she played it. She even had a cowbell on stage for it. This was a time in my life where I was the freest. I wish I could feel that again. Enjoy your youth. That's what that means. Enjoy your youth. So now we're going to go, okay, if you just want to look up the poem, it's on page 69. Then I'm going to read the other poem. So both editors of the book wrote a poem for the book, but I didn't like Lindsay Lusby's, no offense to her, I do, of course, I'm a little biased because I do like Jean DeBro. So this one is by her. And it's on page 131. It's called The Long Deployment. For weeks, I breathed his body in the sheet and pillow. I lift a blanket to my face. There's bitter incense paired with something sweet, like sandalwood left sitting in the heat, or cardamom rubbed onto a piece of lace. For weeks, I breathed his body. In the sheet, I smell incense, anise. I think it's probably anise. I smell anise, the musk that we secrete with longing. Leather and moss, I find a trace of bitter incense, paired with something sweet. Am I imagining the wet scent of peat and cedar, oud, impossible to erase? For weeks, I breathed his body in the sheet. Crushed pepper, although perhaps discreet, difficult for someone else to place. There's bitter incense paired with something sweet. With each deployment, I become an acetate of smoke and oak, but truly fills the space for weeks. I breathe his body in the sheet until he starts to fade, made incomplete. A bottle almost empty in its case. There's bitter incense paired with something sweet. Then he's gone. Not even the conceit of him remains. Not the resinous base. For weeks, I breathed his body in the sheet. He was bitter incense paired with something sweet. So, yeah, I like that one a lot. Let me see which one she got. This is good because you can just go by alphabetical order in the back of the book. DeBro, I passed her. She was paired with Boys Blondes from the same company, Atelier Cologne. Was that hers? No. Oh, she was paired. I'm looking at the wrong person. She was paired with Incense Oud by Killian. I was looking at the wrong person. But it makes sense. She was talking about incense and oud. I hope that's how you say that word. But here's my poem. So this poem is inspired by, I like her repetitiveness, so I'm going to use that. It's inspired by this perfume. It's not really perfume, it's cologne. It's called Blue Depths. It's a knockoff of David of Coolwater. There we go. I love it. I know it's cologne, but I do be wearing cologne sometimes. So the poem's called Blue Depths, named after the cologne. For weeks, I'd wear Blue Depths cologne, because I remember he didn't mind if I wore it. For weeks, I'd wear my Blue Depths cologne, because he said it smelled great on me. For weeks, I'd wear my Blue Depths cologne, because it reminded me of him. For weeks, I'd wear my Blue Depths cologne, because it reminds me of him taking me high into ecstasy. Of course. For weeks, I'd wear my Blue Depths cologne, because I was so heartbroken I didn't know what to do. For weeks, I'd wear my Blue Depths cologne, because I didn't know how I would live without him. For weeks, I'd wear my Blue Depths cologne, because I thought my life was over. For weeks, I'd wear my Blue Depths cologne, because I realized I ignored the flaming flags. For weeks, I'd wear my Blue Depths cologne, because I realized I was in lust and not in love. For weeks, I'd wear my Blue Depths cologne, because I realized I could do so much better. For weeks, I'd wear my Blue Depths cologne, because it was one of my favorite fragrances. For weeks, I'd wear my Blue Depths cologne, because it never broke my heart. So yeah, that was a memory from when I was in my early 20s, and I wore that with one of my exes. So that's the basis for that poem. Of course, my dryer keeps going off. That's probably a good time to end the video because it's very annoying. Definitely highly recommend it, even though some of them are, a little more abstract than concrete. Some of them are more literal, but that's my review of it. Highly recommend it. Check it out, and I will leave a link to it in the description of my video. And I'll see you all next week.